Do you know where he lives?
No.
He's going to be living in my grandparents' shed.
No.
Mm.
And they go in?
No, you don't want him living there?
No, he's to stay by the hall.
If they go in there.
My name is CJ Keohane. I have been at Working Artist Studios in Ballytahab for the last month. I won a artist residency here and I've been having a great time. I've been making puppets and just mainly figuring out how to make them. I came in kind of blind to it. I had a fair idea what I was going to be doing, but figuring out how to fit it all together has been quite a journey. What I'm planning to make is a short film in a documentary style where I'll be interviewing creatures from Irish folklore, so leprechauns and goblins and banshees and stuff. And those are fairly hard to come by, so I've had to resort to making my own ones.
So he's going to be your special guy, you know, because he's your first.
He's my first, yeah. Oh,
yeah,
he's the
first
favourite child.
child.
He's the favourite child.
He's going to be the favourite child, yeah.
CJ, there, would you mind looking at me for a second?
He is. He really is. Like you can relate to him straight away, can't you?
The idea kind of came from, I grew up with these stories and I always loved them, but I was always far more interested in sort of the monsters, I suppose you could call them, rather than the heroes. And they were always kind of the monstrous creatures, the goblins and all that kind of stuff. They were always pushed aside and never really got any of the limelight. They were just there to provide things for the heroes in the story. But I was always way more interested in them. Like, you know, I was always asking these questions like, how do leprechauns afford these massive pots of gold on a cobbler's wage when they just make shoes? Or you know, why do trolls live under bridges? Do they have a housing crisis as well? You know, so I kind of saw similarities in these creatures with actual society. Well, you see, he's a hobgoblin, right? And back in the day, hobgoblins used to live in houses with people, and people would leave a little plate out with cream on it as payment, because he'd do little jobs for the people. He'd brush the floor, clean the fire and stuff, right? But now we all have hoovers and microwaves and stuff. So he's out of work.
So is that how you did it? You made it cardboard ears that you
it's cardboard in his ears.
stapled down, was it?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
whatever?
Oh, there's a lot of what you call them, you know, zip ties,
Oh, right, yeah.
lollipop sticks, rubber bands. The most complex thing is their skin, which is latex, and I'm fairly new to using latex, so that was fun playing around with that. I was fairly, at the start, I didn't have a clue what I could get away with, but as I've gone on, I've found out it's far more resilient than I thought. You can get away with stretching it and bending it and rolling it up and all sorts of stuff. It's way stronger than I thought. So what I started off was I made this sculpt. I sketched them first, but this sculpt, it's made out of a thing called monster clay. It's probably some of the best stuff I ever bought. It's an oil-based clay, so I'll be using it for the rest of my life. It's fairly rock hard now, but if I stick it in the oven or the microwave for a short period of time, if I put it in for too long, it'll go liquid. But it softens up, and I can peel it. Like, you know, I can break this guy then, and I can just reuse it forever and ever. So between that and just using all the reclaimed materials, there's not a lot of waste, which is something that I love about it.
So you have to be really creative. If you want to make something, you just think of something and
that was something
make it work.
I surprised myself as well. So that's kind of my idea. I'm going to be interviewing these creatures, but asking them about modern things, and each of them are sort of a metaphor for things that Irish people are actually struggling with in the modern world. As I've mentioned, the housing crisis. I even have stuff about the dread that you can get from constantly being bombarded with news, 24-hour social media, all that kind of stuff. I have a very anxious banshee that I'm going to be interviewing. I have ideas for about 6 or 8 other characters, ranging quite different styles for each, definitely different personalities. So next, I want to do 2 leprechauns.
Okay.
So they're a pair.
Right.
One is from Cork, one is from Kerry. They don't get on at all.
Oh, really? They will be
I like it already. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it already. Yeah.
There's Cobb is from Cork and Ray is from Kerry.
Yes.
And they're, you see, I got the idea when I was reading up about leprechauns. Leprechauns they're called solitary fairies, so they just don't like hanging out with each
Right.
other.
Right.
So it's like, okay, well, I definitely have to have 2 together, so they just won't agree.
And
We'll have great
They'd be
conversations.
great crack with that.
Yeah.
I want them to have pretty distinct Irish accents, so I probably won't voice them myself. I'll outsource that work to other people that I can find who have interesting voices. I have been playing around with the idea of interviewing actual people, probably elderly people, because they have great voices, and then using what they actually say themselves to be the points of the creatures, which make them even more kind of reflections of ourselves. One great thing about being here is I got a lot of feedback from other artists, people who literally just came in off the street to check out my stuff, and they had backgrounds with puppets, and they gave me all sorts of great advice. But I think the major things that I've learned here is more so what not to do. Going forward, when I'll be making other guys, I think I'll probably have a faster turnaround. I've learnt from my mistakes. Definitely, there's been a lot of things I ran into that I hadn't planned for, and things that I thought would be simpler than they turned out to be. I went away. I had to make a whole. This is a mouth mechanism that I never intended on making. I just thought it would be way easier than it actually was. But yeah, that's it really, I think.